Okay, so here we're going to practice our, our accent marks. Now, if you want to follow along with you can do this if you have access to your Descubre Dos right now. You go to Lección Uno and then Ortografía. This is Práctica. It's in the first activity on there. You can follow along with that, or you can just watch the video and just try to just kind of think in your head. But what we're going to do is we're going to write these words. Now, they are just divided up into syllables right here. So we've got sal, we've got mon. You got to know the word is salmon, salmon. When you hear that word, you can hopefully realize that the stressed syllable is the last syllable. So if we just put it together, this is what it would be spelled like, but do we need an accent mark? That's what we have to think about in this activity. We're just going to basically rewrite everything they have there, but we're going to include accent marks if necessary. And in this one, is it necessary? The word ends in an N. So when a word ends in an N, an S, or a vowel, we are going to put an accent, or we have to stress the second to last syllable. And if it breaks that rule, we put an accent mark on it. And this one actually does break the rule because it is salmon. We stress the last syllable. We're supposed to stress the second to last syllable. So we're going to have an accent mark on the O. Let's go to the next one. We've got inspector, inspector. We stress the last syllable here. Inspector. Tor is when we have that stressed syllable. So this ends in a R. So if R is the last letter, that's not a vowel, that's not an N, that's not an S. So since that's the case, what we're going to do is leave it alone because the last syllable is stressed. That's where the last syllable should be stressed because it ends with R, which is not a vowel N or S. So whenever a word is into that category, the last syllable should be stressed. The last syllable is stressed, so there's no need for an accent mark here. Okay, next one, we've got numero. The word is numero, numero. Now, if you are saying this correctly, numero, numero. The stress is on actually the NU. This syllable right here is the stressed syllable, which is the third from last syllable. Oops, sorry. And if we are, no matter what type of word we have, if you ever stress the third from last syllable, you're definitely going to need an accent mark. So numero has an accent mark on the U because it's the third from last syllable. It should be on that second syllable right here on this syllable right there. Should be the stressed one, but it's not, so we have to write an accent mark. Next word, fácil, fácil. The stress is right here. So if you know how to say the word and you can figure out where the stress syllable is, and you know the rules are if a word ends in a vowel, N or S, it should be on the second to last syllable. This is the second to last syllable. Problem is, this isn't a vowel N or S at the end. It's an L. And so if a word doesn't end in a vowel N or S, if it ends with the L here, the rule is it should be on the last syllable. Since it is not, the stress is right there on that syllable, we need to write an accent mark. Fácil. Now we've got a word that ends in a vowel, so the stress should be here, and it is there. Jugo, jugo. Stress the second to last syllable. That's where it's at. That's what we'll do. And we'll leave it alone because it follows the rule. Abrigo, abrigo. Hopefully you could hear the inflection is right there on that bri. Ends in a vowel. The stress on a word that ends in a vowel should be on the second to last syllable, and it is. So we just rewrite that, abrigo. Okay, next word. Now, hopefully, just think, how do you say this word? Think before I say it. How do you say this next word? And hopefully you said it was rápido, rápido, rápido. Not rapido, not rapido, no, rápido, ra is the stressed syllable right here. So this syllable is stressed. Again, going back to what I said a couple words ago, numero. If you ever have an esdrújula, which is a word where you have the third from the last syllable stressed, then you are definitely going to need an accent mark. But if you want to go back to basics, word ends in a vowel, it should be here. If it's not, write an accent mark on where it is to let the reader know where they should stress the syllable. Okay, next word. How do you say this word? It's a day of the week. For Saturday, this is sábado, sábado, sábado. Stress is on the SA, which is the third from end, sábado. Ends in a vowel. It should be on the BA, but it's not, so we have to show that with an accent mark. Now, base, we've got a monosyllabic word, one syllable to this word. So we are just going to rewrite it. The only time you need an accent mark, you'll have an accent mark on a single syllable word is whenever it is a different part of speech. And with this, we wouldn't even know that anyway because there's no context. We wouldn't know if you mean say as a verb or say as a pronoun. We wouldn't know that. So there won't be any of those on here. But if you do have a single syllable word, most single syllable words are just going to have, there's not going to have an accent mark because there's only one syllable to stress, and that will be stressed. Base is the only syllable, the only one that's stressed. So there's no need to write an accent mark because you're not telling us anything new. Now this word is pronounced menu, menu. Now, so hopefully you heard the inflection at the end. Nu is the stressed syllable. Now this ends in a vowel. When a word ends in a vowel, N or S, the second to last syllable should have the stress. If not, we need to write that accent mark. So this one is the last syllable of stress, so we need to write an accent mark. Operación, operación, sion, any of those sion words, you're going to have the inflection on the last syllable, which violates our rule because this ends with the letter N. Vowel N or S, second to last syllable should have it. It doesn't, so we have to write an accent mark showing that. Operación. Now, if you remember from the videos on this, remember whenever you make a sion word plural, though, it will actually fall into line where it'll follow the rules. It'll end with an S when you make it plural. Operaciones ends with an S, and the second to last syllable is where the stress should be, and it is operaciones. So we wouldn't write an accent mark if this were plural, but it's not here. It's singular. Any of the sion words that are singular will have an accent mark on the O. Impermeable, impermeable. You can hear that. It's a word that ends in a vowel, and the stress syllable is right there. Impermeable, and that means it follows the rules here. Impermeable follows the rules. No need for an accent mark. Además, además, the inflection is on the last syllable. Además. Now, here, it's a word that ends with the letter S, which falls into the category of vowel N or S, which means we need to have the stress syllable on the second to last syllable, and if not, we write an accent mark. Regatear. Now here, we've got an infinitive. Infinitives, the stress syllable should be on the last syllable, and it will be here. Whenever you have a word that doesn't end with the vowel N or S, it's on the last syllable, which is where it is here. So we just are going to rewrite this without any accent marks. Antipático. Now listen to that word. Antipático, antipático, antipático. Pa, pa. That's where the stress is in there. Third from the end. So being that it is an estrújula, it's automatically going to have an accent mark, meaning a word that has the stress syllable in the third from last syllable. So we will definitely need an accent mark. More specifically, ends with a vowel. It's not on the second to last syllable. Since it breaks that rule, we are going to write an accent mark on the, and then pático. All right, this next one. How do you say it? Remember, think about it. We went over this specifically in one of the videos. How do you say this word? And this is pronounced farmacia. Farmacia. The stress is right here. The I and the A blend together to make a single syllable, farmacia. So when we rewrite it, there's no need for an accent mark. If this were pronounced farmacia, which so many people do incorrectly, then there would be an accent mark right here on that I. But it's not pronounced that way. It's farmacia. There's no need for an accent mark. When you had a word like biología, we pronounce the I and the A together differently because we separate those sounds. Biología has an accent mark on the I. Farmacia does not. But you can hear that. Farmacia, cia, versus biología, hia. We have two syllables there. But cia is just one syllable. Okay, esquí, esquí. The stress is on the last syllable there. But where should it be? It ends in a vowel, so it should be on the ES, but it's not. So we are going to show that with an accent mark. I don't know how well you can see it. I can barely see it on my screen, but there is an accent mark on that I here. So E-S-Q-U-I with an accent. Okay, pensión. As I mentioned earlier, when we had operación with the C-I-O-N, any sion word, whether it's C-I-O-N or S-I-O-N, that's where the stress is. So we've got pensión. That's an N at the end. So our rule should be on the second to last syllable. It's not, it's on the last syllable. So we mark that by putting an accent mark over the O. Now here, kind of similar to why we put an accent mark in biología and not in farmacia is, remember, we're going to use accent marks to separate syllables. We're going to use accent marks to separate syllables, and we're also going to, and we'll use them if they violate the stress syllable rule. This one kind of does both. We actually have, if we didn't have an accent mark in this one, this would just be pais, right? P-A-I-S. The A and I would blend together to make one sound, but we want to separate those sounds, and we also want to stress the last syllable. So it actually kind of forms double duty here. It's país, país. We are going to stress the second syllable, which when a word ends in an S, it should be the second to last syllable that's stressed. But that would screw everything up with this pronunciation. That would break all sorts of rules. This is actually, we can look in this in a few different rules right here from this verb, this word alone. País, país, 2 syllables, país. Now we also, without the accent mark, this would be 1 syllable, which when you have 1 syllable, you don't require an accent mark because it's only 1 syllable, but it would be pronounced país. We don't want that. We want país, país. We want to hear the is in there, so we separate it with an accent mark. But also because it ends in an S, the stress syllable should be in the second to last syllable, but it's not. So we write an accent mark for that reason as well. So like I said, this one serves a few purposes, but no matter which way you look at it, it needs an accent mark in that spot regardless. Okay, last one, perdón, perdón. We stress the last syllable. D-O-N is stressed, perdón. That's an N at the end, vowel, N or S. We need to stress the second to last syllable. Since it's on the last syllable here, we need to show that it violates the rule, and we will need a written accent mark. Now, this one we're plural. Perdones, mil perdones, right? Perdones, this word ends with an S. The stress is still on that same syllable right here, and that would follow the rules, so there would be no need for an accent mark here. But we are still singular in our exercise, so we'll change it back. Let's see how we did. Looks like we nailed it. All right. Good work. Hopefully that made sense to you. If not, ask me some questions or, go back and watch some of the previous videos. Adios.